In our previous videos, we have already discussed, there are three ways of hosting WCF service. One is you can either use the Internet Information Server, that is a web server. Second, you can use self-hosting, that means host the WCF service with a simple .NET application itself. Or the third is by using the WAS server. Till now, whatever examples we have seen, we have hosted WCF service using simple Internet Information Server. What we'll do in this question is that we will try to understand that how we can self-host WCF services. So in this example, we will create a simple WCF service and we'll try to host that WCF service in our command application. So the first step is basically to create our class library. So what I've done is that I have created a simple solution here and I have added a class library over here. And in this class library, we'll be writing our service contract, our operation contract, and the implementation for the WCF service. So in other words, this class library will be having the complete WCF service which we will be hosting later on using the console application. So the first step is basically to go and import the necessary namespaces. So as we all know that basically all the WCF necessary classes belong to system.service model. So I have imported system.service model namespace and system.service model description namespace. Now the next step is basically to go and create your service contract. So what we will do is that we will create a simple service contract with a simple operation contract for hello world. So you can see that I have created a simple service contract here, and this service contract I have named it as iHello service, and I have attributed this interface with the service contract attribute, and we have basically created a simple method here and simple method called as say hello, and this method I have attributed with the operation contract. Now the next step is basically to define implementation for this iHello world service interface. So for the service contract, we need to define the implementation. So what we'll do is that let's create a simple hello world service class and implement the iHello world service. And what we'll do is the say hello world, whatever we are taking in the input, we'll just say hello and whatever is the input. So basically we have defined a simple implementation for the hello world service. So we have the service contract and the operation contract, and we have our implementation hello world service class. Now what we'll do is that let's go and add a simple console application, and let's try to host this service, the iHello world service, inside the console application. So the next step is basically to create a simple console application in which we are going to host the WCF service. So I've created a simple console application here, and I have added the reference to the class library. You can see that I have added the reference to class library 1, and also I have added reference to system.service model because all the namespaces of WCF service are existing in the system.service model. And then I have imported both these namespaces of system.service model so that I can host my WCF service. Now the next step is basically to go and create the URI object. So the next step is in the static void main, what I've done is I've created a simple URI object, and I'm saying that on this URL I'm going to host my WCF service. So basically I'm saying over here is that I'm going to host my WCF service on 8010 port on my local machine, with the URI my service / hello world. Now the next step is basically we need to host our service on this URL. That is, we need to host our hello world service on http localhost 8010 my service / hello world. Right. Now in order to host the service on this URL, we need to create the object of service host. So here we have created the service host object, and we have hosted the service hello world service on this URL, http URL. Now after that we need to add the endpoint. So on the host we have added a service endpoint with the iHello world interface, iHello world service interface, and with WS HTTP binding. Basically, if you remember, one of the things very important in WCF service is address, binding, and contract. So basically we need to specify the binding. And the next step after that, we need to enable our metadata exchange so that the end clients can understand what the metadata is, and basically they can create a proxy object proxy object out of it. And finally, we need to host our service. And what I've done is basically once the service is hosted, I'm just keeping the console open, and I have halted the console by using the console.read line. So basically, what we have done is we have created the URL, we have used the service host object to host the service on the URL, we have created our endpoint. While we created our endpoint, we specified our binding, we then enabled our metadata exchange, and after that we started the service, and we have halted the console to just see that the service is running, and we can connect to the service to connect to the hello world service class methods. So let's go and run our service. So let me run our service. So basically what will happen is basically whatever WCF service we have created is now hosted inside the console application. So that's my service which is running, and because we have written a console.read line, the service is now halted here, and it's basically waiting for any kind of inputs from the client to make method calls to the service. Now let's go to the browser to just see how the WSDL looks like. So I have pasted the same URL on which we have hosted our WCF service. So the same URL, that is http localhost 8010 myservice/hello world. So that's my browser. So let's press enter, and we should be able to see the metadata. So basically you can see that we are able to view the metadata of our WCF service. So in other words, now our WCF service is hosted in a in the console application. So in other words, it is self-hosted. And yes, definitely you can go create your client, refer this WSDL and create a proxy object of it, and you can basically go and call the methods. So I'm not going to explain how to do that, because we have already explained the same in our previous tutorial. So the other things exactly remain same. So creation of the client exactly remains same. Now basically you can just go and refer this refer the URL, and you can generate the proxy object out of it. So I hope that this session was useful. In this session we saw that how we can host WCF service inside the console application. So in other words, we looked into that how we can self-host WCF service. So I hope this session was useful, and see you in the coming up sessions.